I want to say hello, everyone. It's great to be back together in celebratory mode. And it's less than 3 weeks when we came together to explore for our annual Generation W event. And a big thank you for all that joined us and all who made it happen. There's several of them right now with us. And the wonderful messages we have received and we're continuing to receive about the positive impact people experienced. And I have to tell you, that is really the motivation for us to continue to move forward with this wonderful work. This year's theme, Explore, has taken a hold of me. It's inside of me. It shaped so much of my thinking leading up to the event, and it's still very present in my everyday. The spirit of curiosity, seeking adventure, inspired by the unknown, and the energy derived from discovery. It's all so good. And when that good stuff happens, you just don't want to let it go. And then if any of you were not there and would like to have had that experience, we can share a link with you. Just reach out, put it in our chat right here to info@genwnow.com. We'd be happy to share it with you. I'd have to say I got this fantastic note yesterday, and this woman who was driving from Texas to Florida said, "I got the link, I listened the whole way, quote unquote. It was perfect." Thank you, Mary. As I continue to reflect on Gen W, the everyday explorers who shared their stories, the optimism that Dr. Musalem inspired us with, the valuable AI learnings from Ian Beecraft, and the powerful messages of survivorship and thrivership from Tina Lifford. Not to mention the research from Jennifer Musil and the Harris poll, and the reminder that history only becomes history if we help write and recall it, from Olivia Mickle. Oh, and then there was a conversation about space, the dark skies above, as these remarkable women also touched the inner space in our hearts. We also met, thanks to PNC's Chris Callan, this year's remarkable entrepreneurs, our Launch Our Women, which, by the way, we'll get to talk to in 2 weeks. There's nothing about an entrepreneurial journey. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the workshops as well. Kelly Watson from IBM, who shared incredible insights on AI health, and our beloved board chair, Dr. Orender Johnson, who once again shared her lessons in leadership. I gotta say, we're still flying from the experience, still a bit exhausted, but nonetheless exhilarated. And I have to say also that the desire for so many to keep the W spirit present in our lives is really what started all of Refresh. You see, what happens is after we leave W, what happens, or any great experience you have, life sucks us back into the everyday. We have dishes to wash and laundry to do and family demands and a living to make and all that good stuff, right? But in that, we have this added fuel now from the learning we got from W, the inspiration, the power of the connectivity of the great people we met, those we know, those we knew and those we know now. And we ultimately feel good about the whole thing, but we still want to be refueled. And that's what I wanted to share with you this morning, was that was the start of Refresh, is this idea of people wanting the W spirit to stay with them. And so, as we say at the start of every show, welcome to Refresh, a time to connect, to be inspired, to learn something, and ultimately feel good about the time we spend together. It's the power of bringing us back to connecting ourselves to what helps us be our best selves. So actually, it's a gift. And we are grateful to all of you. All of you. And speaking of gratitude, we introduced something new this year. It's called Generation W Honors. And it's a way to recognize those who have been worthy, wondrous, and wise. I'm sure many of you are all three of those. People who have led lives of purpose and service and have really been role models for Generation W. Our inaugural honorees were Pam Paul and Dr. Richard Lapchick. We surprised them, and I have to tell you, the emotion around it surprised us all. It was just warm and, I don't know, and wonderful. But in that process, just one more thing, one more piece of connectivity, is we met today's Refresh guest, Amy Dix, the happiness artist. She wrote a book, 7 More Days, and she asked the question, if you had 7 days left to live, what would you do? Now, I have to just say that question doesn't immediately make me feel happy. It gives me a little bit of worry. But what she does as our happiness artist, which also is a part of her creativity work, is she gets us to think. And so I'm not going to tell you any more about Amy because she's here. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Thank you.
I'm eager to talk with Amy. So Amy, listen, like many of us, you started out as a person seeking to be your best, find your place, right?
Yeah.
And the happiness artist? How did you get from here to here?
Oh,
Or,
wow. I mean, that's a
or,
huge question.
or here, here. Or
But
you can break it up into
yeah,
parts. And
I can break it up into a few
I just want to
pieces.
remind all of our audience, hey, Peter, yes, she is in the house. Um, what I would like to do is remind everybody that you're a part of this, right? One of the reasons we do this as we do as a webinar Zoom is so that our community can speak in terms of like can send out questions and you get a chance to directly interact with our guests. So please feel free to do that. But Amy, tell us more. Tell us the beginning.
Yeah.
What's the
I
genesis?
think it's a really interesting question for me because I think like as we look at happiness and positivity and kind of where I am today, it's not a really big bridge of where I was before, right? So like I don't really have like the story of I had a really traumatic, past and was really sad and depressed. That's not part of my story. My story really was I grew up in an amazing household. My parents were absolutely incredible. And my mom was the most positive, happy person that I ever knew. And so
Oh,
I
that's so
kind of
nice.
had, yeah, oh, it's so true. She was just like this ray of sunshine in a room. You just wanted to be with her, and she gave everyone like the same like level of treatment. She treated everyone with just amazing respect, and it was really incredible to see. And so like I grew up in that kind of house, right? So I grew up in that manner. And really, what I didn't realize, Donna, how lucky I was until I separated from the house, right? Like until I went off to college, until I then became a professional. Like when I was away from all of that little bubble, I realized I'm so lucky. Like I am so lucky for my upbringing. I'm so lucky for, who I am and what my parents instilled in me. And not everyone is as lucky. And really, when I started to kind of research positivity and happiness, came much later on in life. In 2016, my mom was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and she passed 8 short months later. And so, kind of like during that time, it was just like this amazing, beautiful journey in that 8 months. And just to see somebody who was so realistic about dying, like she knew she was dying, but yet she maintained this insane level of positivity and happiness. And so all of that combined is really what led to the research that then led to the book of 7 More Days.
I think we're all feeling sad that your mom left us this, right? This beacon of happiness, but she obviously left um, something within you that you are now living forward. So tell me how you became the happiness artist.
Well, that all started really, I'll tie this back to my mom too. This was not really how it all kind of started, but I think it's important context to understand because I later look back at this and go, oh, which is that just months before she was diagnosed, she started kind of exploring her creativity and painting and doing some just like creative crafts and string art that she really fell in love with. And I have some of her pieces of art, and I often look at them and wonder, like, what could have transformed? Like, what could that be today if she just had more time, right? But the important part of that story is not necessarily like the outcome of what her art or creativity may have been, but the fact that she really found something that she loved to do. And so if I kind of take like that same lesson, and I'll bring us to the pandemic for a moment. So during the pandemic, we all know what happened there. And as a professional speaker at the time, all like that was my world, that was my income, that was my everything, right? And so all of those speaking engagements were just like sucked up into this mean vacuum cleaner, never to be seen again. And so I had really all this time on my hands because now I was home, I wasn't traveling, I wasn't on stages. And what that allowed me to do with the time is to explore my own creativity. So I kind of followed my mom's path, not intentionally at the time, but just, now I kind of see the parallel. But what then transpired after that was pretty incredible. So from there, then I started painting, I started doing commissions, I started, then later on integrating it in similar to what we did with Gen W, doing performance paintings along with speaking. And so it really like opened this entirely new avenue and this new door for me. And I think that if we think about it for ourselves, right, like that's my story, but like if we think about it for ourselves, it really kind of creates the question of how can we bring creativity to our own lives? How can we bring creativity to our own happiness? You don't have to go be a performance painter. You don't have to go and become a professional artist. But if you kind of bring some of that into your everyday life, then how is that going to affect my happiness? How is that going to affect some of the things that we do as leaders in solving problems and being innovative and all of that? And so that then kind of led down another road for me. So that's really the A to Z of it all.
Okay, and that's a lot. But you mentioned performance art. You were on our stage painting a painting, if you will. You were painting upside down, an image upside down while we were presenting the awards and something that we then gave to our awardees. Where did that come from?
Where did that come from, Donna? That came from two things, right? It came from my love of speaking and wanted to, when stages kind of came back, and I did it virtually too, but like it came from that love of being on stage and saying, okay, how can we continue to like up level Amy the speaker, right? Like how can we continue to bring audiences in instead of just like talking at audiences? And yes, it may be inspiring and maybe motivated, but how can we really bring them in from sitting in the seats into like on the stage with you? And so that then kind of created this whole thing. And I'll say this, for years, Donna, for years, I was wondering, how can I change my speaking? How can I do something different with my speaking? How can I bring something different to the stage? And I could never really think about like what that was, right? Like I couldn't figure that out. But then with the creativity side of it, once I started painting, it just like this light bulb went off and I was like, oh, that's it. Like I can paint on stage. This would be so fun. And so just then the two worlds collided.
Paint on stage and paint upside
Right
down.
down.
Okay, right? I think it would be great. We have a lot of people who've joined us. It would be interesting to know what their creative outlet is. You
Yes.
talked a little bit about how creativity and the impact on the brain.
Mm. Hmm. There's a
And
lot of, yeah,
tell
there's
us a
a
little.
lot. Yeah, so I think the nerd in me, if you will, loves the science, right? So
We're all with you on that.
so I love the creative stuff. I love the inspirational stuff, but I love to also talk about the science of it all. And so there's so much. And we'll just kind of start here. We know from different research that when we're creating that or in a state of creativity, that the different sections of our brain, they're all firing, and they work together and they create different pathways to then work together, which is not typically the case of how our brain operates. And so now we're fully using our capacity in creative mode. The other bit about it that I really think is fascinating as I kind of went down this road of research a while back was that, it might be obvious, Donna, that like our happiness chemicals kind of raise when we're being creative. Maybe that's obvious to folks. But what was most shocking to me was that our cortisol levels drop 75%. And for those of us who don't, or for those of you who may not know what cortisol is, it's your stress. So let's just say this, right?
Yeah,
You want
say
to
it.
drop your stress? Create something, do something, paint something, doodle something. Like don't worry about the outcome. It's the actual process that drops our cortisol levels. I mean, if that doesn't like inspire somebody to want to do something creative, I don't know what will, but I will drop my stress 75% any day if I have the ability to do it.
No, it's great. I love the idea of creating. There's so many ways to create. It's part of right now my exploration discovery mode. But then you do get caught up in what you're creating and the judgment around that. And then is it good enough? And, is this the best use of my time? And you do kind of like invade that goodness with all of the other stressors. So how do
Yeah.
you kind of avoid that? How do we
Yeah.
keep the magic of the creation magical?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it, which is in a roundabout way, which is not worrying about the outcome of it, right? And just focusing on the process of it. And I'll just share this story because this actually played out on the Gen W stage, even though I talk about it, even though I know that that is not, we should not worry about the outcome. But when we flipped that thing over, it was like, oh, like we were talking prior to this about not that things aren't good, but sometimes you're not at your best. And so in that moment, like there was in my mind, there was judgment, there was fear, there was like not meeting my own expectations, right? And so that ruins the moment. That ruins the magic of it all. And so when we think about creativity and we think about creating, it's if we can release the outcome from it and just enjoy the process, then the magic stays. And as adults, 84% of adults say that they have been criticized. They can remember a time that they were criticized from something that they created. So no wonder we have fear around this, right? Like, no wonder we have these big expectations because that's in the back of our minds, and we remember those moments, and we remember negative moments more than we remember positive moments. That's some positive psychology, but that rings true too. And so that's really tough to overcome when you're looking at those kind of statistics.
Well, yes, it is, but we need to try to do that. I want to just say welcome again to everybody who's joined us for today's refresh with creative artist happiness. I love that title, by the way. I think we should all give ourselves great titles like this. Happiness artist Amy Dix, and thank you to Rachel for introducing her to us to Amy. You wrote a book called Seven
Yeah.
More Days.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
7 More Days, as I said, kind of just to give a little bit of background, started, because of my mom's journey. That's what started the research. Remember, I said I was a little bit of a nerd, wanted to do the research, wanted to understand how this woman could be so positive and happy her entire life, because some of the things that she shared with me on her deathbed were quite the opposite, and things I didn't know about her and her childhood and just things that she went through in life. And I thought, oh my gosh, if you went through all that, like how are you still the person that you are? And so 7 More Days really stemmed from that. And the question that we started this whole conversation with, which was, if you only had 7 more days left to live, what would you do?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you said it felt really heavy, and it does feel heavy, but it's intended to be heavy because that then motivates us to do the thing, right? It motivates us. It helps us understand what is most important. And on my Unlocking Happiness podcast, I've had hundreds of guests at this point, and so I've asked that question, and I went back for a speech that I was doing a while back, and I went back and I charted everybody's answer to that question.
Great idea. Great idea.
Right? So pretty incredible. This is what came out of it. Everyone but like a handful. It all came down to what I could kind of concise down to one word, which is this: connection. It was
Oh,
really all about connection.
oh,
Yeah. I gave you the pause there, Donna, for effect.
And I want to follow up on that. What makes us not in our everyday life value that as much as we should?
Oh, I don't
Right?
know.
In some ways, like it's really interesting because obviously I started Generation W work. It's 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
the core of our work is connection. Honestly, connection. There's other elements of it. There's learning, there's leadership, there's empowerment, all that stuff. But it's about all of those are connection pieces. And yet somewhere in our culture, there's this underlying message that that's not value. It doesn't deliver ROI. And yet it's the most valuable ROI we have.
Yeah. It it's pretty incredible to think about also how simple that is, right? Like to think about if connection is it, if connection is what matters most to us, then I can do that. You can do that. Everyone listening can do that, right? That's what I mean by it's simple. The more challenging part is, in my opinion, taking time to actually make it meaningful and to do it and to really
How,
connect with.
and how do you suggest we do that? And what is the
Hmm.
most meaningful part of connection? Because I'm in all those 100 answers, I assume that it was expressed differently each time, but
Sure.
those are
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's taking the time. I mean, it could be as simple as sending a text message. One of the things that I've done on stage before, which is always so fun and super powerful, is have an audience just text somebody that they love and say, I love you, or thinking of you, or I'm at this great event, you came to mind, right? And that's it. Just a 5-10 second text. And then what we do is we have people start raising their hands when they get the text back. And there have been tears that have been shared because people get just like this beautiful message back just by saying, I'm thinking of you. And then they get this like beautiful sentiment back. And so I think that that's the easiest way, and it only takes seconds. It doesn't have to be this big, huge, hey, let's go on a trip to Europe and plan it and do all these things. Like, that's great. And if you can do that's fun too, right? But just to have the emotions of happiness, it's all it takes is a single reach out that is only seconds long. And you said something that I think is super important, which is the word meaning or meaningful, right? And having meaningful connections. And I just think that that really comes from intent and really intending to, be authentic behind your message.
It's interesting. I'm going to think of the sports world, which people would
Yeah.
understand. But there is this data that they did. And in the business world, it would be weird, but it's how many times people touch each other. So, when you're
Ooh.
competing, there's a high five, there's a touch on the back, there's this, whatever. And they've correlated that the teams that touch the most are more successful.
Oh,
And another little data point, it has to do especially with women and girls participating in sports, that a lot of girls love to play volleyball. Now, I don't know how many of you watch volleyball now, but after every point, they come in and talk to each other.
yeah, yeah.
And the young women especially like that in other sports that don't have it, because there's this connectivity piece that elevates their sense of well-being. So, I mean, you can see it in every other thing. Now, in
Wow.
our office, I don't think we're gonna, maybe we should, Amanda's on here. Maybe Amanda Lewis should start doing high fives all day. We can count our touch points. I don't know, something like that. Maybe that would be, you write about 3 pillars of happiness. Oh, wait, before we go on,
Yeah,
Tiffany. She had a great question. I want to go back.
yeah.
Tiffany, because Tiffany actually is a therapist, if you will. She's a counselor or coach for athletes in particular. She wants to know, how can we release the outcome from the process?
Yeah, you have to, I mean, in my opinion, you have to separate the two. So you can't be thinking about the outcome. You have to just be in the moment and with the process. I was gonna I had something on the tip of my tongue and I think I just lost it. But just being able to separate the two. And again, I think it just comes from our own expectations that we put on ourselves, because look, the outcome, like if you're I'll just use painting for an example. If I'm painting something right here in my studio, nobody sees the outcome until I share it, right? Or somebody comes over to my house and I have it available for them to see. But that's your own mind like judging what the outcome is going to be or what the outcome is. And so just being in the moment and being in the actual I mean, this is what artists call flow state, right? Or athletes too. Oftentimes we hear it in marathons is, you get into like this flow state, and it's just that is the ultimate, is when you're in the flow state and you're just in the moment. Forget about the outcome.
Yeah, easier said than done. I think
Oversimplified.
that's what we're all feeling. Easier said than done. The idea is just to be in it and do it, but we're all thinking about, well, where is it going to be, right? Um,
Yeah, but just release the judgment, I guess, the judgment of you judging, is it good, is it bad?
yeah, that's also hard, right? That's also really hard, but very valuable. in terms of how we go about doing things. Because most of our work every day, we're conditioned to respond
Yeah.
to somebody evaluating what we do.
Yeah.
And that, and there's a whole part of it that has real value and accountability and productivity and efficiency and teamwork and all that. But I do understand the flow. When you get in that flow moment, has anybody been in that flow moment and it just all kind of happens for you? It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing. All right, well, you talk about three pillars of happiness. What are
Yeah.
they? And, which one has the most value to you? And I'd be interested to know, to our guests today, what would be the most valuable to them?
Yeah, I mean, I gave away the secret already, but character, connection, and community. Those are the three pillars as I write them in 7 More Days of Happiness. So character, meaning like who you are, the self-care, things that you do for yourself, connection, connecting with others, and community is like really like the greater good. So, I would look at, for example, Gen W, like being a part. We were talking about community right before we got on here too, or I was talking about it with Sherry. I think you were on to it at the time, but we were talking about
Yeah.
the Gen W community. Like that's the greater good as a whole, right? And so those are the three pillars as I define them, as I've done more research and looked at how people answered that one question. We really can boil it down to understand that most people prioritize connection above the other two.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And let's talk a little bit about creativity.
Okay,
You
let's
have
do it.
talked about the fact that kids,
Mm,
right, or many adults abandon creativity as we get older. It's like we abandon asking questions when we move out from into our teen years. Why is that? And how do we work to maintain that really valuable part of our brain and energy?
yeah, I think as adults, it's more of an intentional decision. So I'll answer this in through story. So when I was younger, I never wanted to be an artist. I never wanted to, like, that was never like, oh, I'm going to be an artist or I'm going to be like that was not on my radar, right? But if I look back and understand how my childhood was, and look back at the memories, I created a lot. I colored, I got paint on things that I shouldn't have gotten paint. I painted my room one time, like the wall in my room. My parents were like, I don't know about that, but I did it. And then and like we're encouraged as children, especially very young children, we're encouraged, sit down, color, do this, create this, let's do this project. As we become adults, that has to be more of an intentional decision to make. Okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to create this. Okay, I am going to sit down or take the time and paint this or craft this or build this or cook this. I mean, the creative process is beyond just art, but we have to actually intentionally take that time. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, 84% of adults have that experience where they know they can recall a time that they were criticized. So if we were criticized, why do we want to go back to that? Like, I don't want to go back to that mindset, like I don't want to go back to that feeling. I don't want to go back to that feeling. It was a terrible feeling, and so we have to kind of work past that and be intentional about actually creating. And that's what I love about my mom's story so much too, is like she became very intentional about creating there towards the end. They set up a little place in the basement of the house so she could just create whenever she wanted to create. She didn't have to get all the stuff out. So she made it very easy for herself to enter that happiness state.
Yeah.
And
So
so
give
we
us
have,
creativity 101. Like, where do we start? Like, I mean, I love creative things. I just,
yeah.
some areas I'm good at them and some I'm not. Like, right? Some people said, I'm going to make a picture. I never could make a picture.
Well, you just said something that I think is so important. See, there's where we go going, I'm good at it, I'm not good at it. So if I'm
Right.
not good at it, I'm not going to do it, right? So to release that, and like I think you can start in anyone. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be good at something in order to create something. And I'll start here. I said creativity and creating does not just have to be art. I often use the example of cooking. Like, you're creating something. Like, who loves to cook, right? Most people love to cook. Of course, hopefully maybe for the outcome if you're a great cook, but I would venture to guess if I ask you enough questions, you love to cook because you love the process of cooking as well, right? And so so to release like I'm good at it, I'm not good at it is number one. Number two, just doing like small things. So you could do, one of the things that I like to say is you can do a color a day activity where today you like wake up and you go, okay, today my color is red. We'll go with Gen W, right? I'm feeling red today. I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling red. So you take red and you just start doodling, or you write words, or you create patterns. Like you just create with that color, and it can just be a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to set aside like 2 hours to do something like this. The other one that everyone can do, everyone, is the color a day, just from the perspective of seeing the color of the day. So like I might wake up tomorrow, or I'll just take today, for example. I'm going to say my color today is pink. And what I'm
Okay.
going to, and okay, so now the purpose is I want to see pink and I want to recognize pink every, like wherever I am. Well, right now I can see it on my wallpaper. I can actually
Yeah.
see, and I didn't notice this until I just said this word, but your sticky notes actually look pink now that I look at them. I don't know if they are, but on the camera they look pink. I'm starting to see pink now, like throughout my office. But that's it. You just take that color and now you start to kind of notice things, and everyone can do that, and that will help you with your creative expression, because now you're internally expressing, you're seeing things, and you're starting to think differently, and your brain fires differently.
Yeah, which is important. Now, we always ask our guests, as you know, to leave us with three things. And we'd like Amy's thoughts on creating our way to a happier and fuller life.
Yeah.
So, Amy, why don't you talk us through, beginning with reconnecting with your inner artist, even if you're not creative, addressing my thing that I don't think I can draw, but go ahead.
I think it comes down, that first point there really is about talent. Like reconnecting with your artist, even if you're not creative. Here's something that I hear all the time: but Amy, I'm not talented. Amy, I don't have any skills. Amy, I'm not good at that. Right? So you're right, going back to that. And so when we look at that, we can boil it down to say like, oh, but I'm not good at that. I'm not talented at that. I don't have that talent. And I love, 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 love the quote that Bob Ross says, which is, talent is just a pursued interest. Right? So like, look, I wasn't talented at paint. I certainly wasn't talented at painting upside down in 4 minutes at any point, but I pursued the interest. I kept pursuing it. And so you continue to get better and better. Speaking of Bob Ross, he's the first painting I ever did as a speaker. And Donna, I should find that picture for for the audience. I mean, it's not great. It's actually really challenging for me to look at. But that's the point, right? Is that talent is just a pursued interest. So you don't have to have this creative talent. The important part is to just create, and stop thinking about the word creativity, I think, and just think about the word create.
Okay. Thinking. No, I love the word. I think there's so much power, and I think you find creativity in all that you do. I love to garden, right? There's so much,
Perfect.
right? And my
Yes.
garden is a painting. Like I look at it, the colors, the size, the depth, all that kind of stuff. So it's really fun. And I'm personally hearing you within that context, and I'm really appreciating it. How about the science-backed connection? We talked a little bit about that before as well.
Yeah, I think that does go back to the what I was saying about how our brain kind of activates on all levels. And the cool thing is, oftentimes I talk about how we can be more positive and happy, and the fact that we can, if, like, let's say you didn't have that childhood that I talked about, and I was like, oh, my childhood was amazing, and I grew up with like this insanely happy mother and father, for that matter. So the good news is that if you're not wired that way naturally, that you can create those pathways. Like you can reshape your brain, like you can, science shows us that we can create those positive and happy pathways. And so same thing, right? So when our brain is firing and we're creating more of those pathways, then those moments are the moments that create happiness. And so you don't have to naturally have these abilities, have these talents, have this like creative side to you, as we were talking about earlier. Science shows us that we can use creativity and art to create that happiness within
Yeah.
ourselves.
And great point. I think we probably should do a follow-up session. I should bring back one of our Sherry, we should bring back one of our neuroscientists to really talk about how the pathways for our brains can be rewired, that there's a
Yes.
real agility in our brains if we can continue to work with them and be active. I keep hearing I keep hearing you say activate, activate, activate. Felt like my trainer this morning, Donna, you know, you're not, you got to activate those muscles. You're gonna lose them, right? And so I think this is really an admonition to all of us to be creative, to keep thinking, right? To keep creating. And that's your final thing here, which is your intentional creativity for everyday joy, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the key word there on this particular image is intentional. Like, be intentional about it, and create those moments, because that then overall, it brings innovation, it brings happiness, it brings more joy. And again, you don't have to block out like 2 hours to do it. You could, maybe you're doodling right now as you're listening to Donna and I talk, and that is that works too, right? So you don't,
It
it
does,
doesn't
it
have to
does.
be hard.
But it's funny, as kids, if we doodled in class, we got yelled at, right? We
Well,
got yelled
right.
at. Well, we're not
Yeah.
yelling now. You can doodle.
Doodle away.
So give us a couple of other, if you would, ways for us, if we don't think we're creative, that we could start today to experience more joy creatively. All right, I'm doodling now. I'm
Yeah.
doodling.
Are you doodling? Is that
No, not doodling. No, I take notes. I take notes.
Yeah. Find something. Here's what I would tell you. Find something, just you have to start somewhere, right? So like, again, I didn't start painting or become a professional artist. I'll use the word intention again, like intentionally. Like, I didn't proactively pursue it. And so you never know what's on the other side of creativity. And so find what you love, like, and don't stop. So when I first started, all that time that I had on my hands, right, when I was painting right here, I'm pointing over here, but like right here at my kitchen table, I started out just with watercolors because it was easy. I had it available, it was easy. And I quickly learned, not my thing. I didn't love it. Some of the stuff was, fine and cool, but I didn't love the process of it. And so I kept moving, and then I moved to a different medium. So then I moved to acrylics, and then since then I've moved to oils. Like, so you don't know what the path is. And I think that that's the important thing, like when we think about creating. And I'm talking about art, but again, just, it can be anything. Like, go back to your garden, right? Like, you might not have realized when you first started gardening all the different little things that you learned along the way
Oh,
that you
without a
were
doubt.
going to love, right? Yeah.
Totally. Totally. No, absolutely, absolutely true. And it'd be great. Everyone, before we leave, if somebody, everybody put in one thing that they thinking right now that they didn't think even before that they're doing that's creative. It could be, honestly, it's a wide expanse, but I would love everyone to share with all of us because it will get
Okay.
us thinking about the more creative things that we are doing. They're talking about sand sharks actually in our chat. I mean, sand sharks and sharks' teeth.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I am a shark's teeth tooth person. And I think Rachel said they make pictures with their kids, and there's just a lot of creativity in that. I am not really good at it. My son can go. He could get 10 in whatever time, and
Oh
maybe
my gosh.
I'll find one.
I,
But I'm not giving up on that. So let's see what we got. We got creating in Canva. Cooking.
love
Hey,
it.
Alex Rift, how are you? Cooking. Yes, right? Writing.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Journaling.
Yes.
Writing short stories, taking photos are so good. I always want to take that
So good.
Apple class.
Yeah.
Wait a second, Lauren, welding metal forging. Why? That is so great. Mine are in, she's talking about shark's teeth. Mine are in a fun color chart. Yes, of course they are. I try to keep mine all over. Picking flowers and arranging them. Arranging flowers is really creative, right? Singing. Thank you, Juan. That's really
Oh, so
good.
good.
I don't know. So really there is a creative soul in all of us, whether we
Yes.
want to see it or not. I'm just asking people to call it out because Amy, what you're showing us is that there's real joy that if we're intentional about, we're going to feel. right?
Yes.
We don't want to just
Yes.
pass through it. We want to spend the time and hug on it, right?
Yes.
Valerie, walking through the university's bamboo garden. What? Oh, wait, which university? And appreciate plants and flowers. I like taking iPhone pics. That's really awesome.
Love it. Alexandra, I love dancing in the kitchen. Dancing is the best. She says dancing in the kitchen while we're cooking.
Oh, I love that. That reminds me of a great movie, The Big Chill. I know it really dates myself, but I was dancing in the kitchen the other day and I said, does anyone remember this movie? And like, nobody did. Music is a must while cooking.
Love
Awesome.
it.
Really great. So as we wrap up, any final thoughts you want to leave us with, our happiness artist who's got us? Look, we're all happy. We're smiling. I can see the happiness coming off the page. Any final thoughts
Yeah.
to leave us with, Amy?
Yeah, I will leave you with this. If you had 7 more days, like I want you to think through this, everyone to think through this. If you had 7 more days left to live, what would you do? And I think when you really sit and think about that, that will lead you down a path of what it is that you need to do next in life.
I think it's a great, great point. I read it. I started thinking immediately, and then I put it away for a while. I find it to be very, very important, right? And it needs intention and thoughtfulness. I want to thank you, Amy. Thank you for being on our stage. Thank you for
Thank you.
uplifting our first annual Generation W Honors Experience. It's great to know you.
Thank
I
you.
want to invite everyone back on April 30th for our next refresh. Remember, the power of connection is the most important thing we value. And so we'll be connecting again with 3 remarkable entrepreneurs. They were part of our Launch Her Women project, which is our attempt to identify and then help uplift women entrepreneurs. And they are the creator of House of Remnant Soul, a woman who created a company called Essentials, which is, I think, Dr. Natalie Mitchell, yes, and the Lux Wicks and Candle Company, Hinder Pugh, the founder and CEO. We'll look forward to talking about entrepreneur, the dream, how do we get there, how do we maintain it on the next refresh on April 30th. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All righty, bye-bye.